Hello everyone, welcome to your next chapter and section. In this chapter, we're going to be talking all about web scraping. So you're going to learn by the end of this chapter how to scrape simple websites. You're not going to be able to do some more advanced ones. I'll tell you what that actually means as we learn more about scraping at the moment. But we're going to really introduce you to web scraping. Like we could spend a whole series on web scraping alone to get you to where you need to be able to scrape everything. So this is really, we're hoping that, or I'm hoping at least that by the end of this chapter, you start to understand some of the basics of web scraping and will be able to scrape some websites for you. So I've used basically the techniques in this chapter for my own work previously. So it's not, you're going to get to a point where you can at least start to learn how to web scrape and then advance your knowledge if you want to later on. Okay, so what are we going to learn today, guys? We're not going to do a lot of coding. We're going to look at code, but we're not even going to look at Python code. We're going to look at HTML code today. I'm going to spend a syntax section just describing what you are looking at when you view an HTML page and how you determine whether or not you can scrape information from it. So that's what I'm hoping you're going to be able to learn by the end of this class. So we're going to spend a little time looking at the syntax of HTML and show you what you should expect to see and what you should probably start to look for if it's information that you want to collect from a website. And then, eventually we're going to show you how to automate your scraping so you can hit websites with a for loop really, really fast and automate it so you don't have to do it. So you can if you find the right website, you'll be able to extract thousands and thousands and thousands of different sets of information. So the only definition we're going to talk about is just what is HTML, what that acronym actually is. It's called Hypertext Markup Language. What it really means is that it's almost like you're wrapping stuff in containers like Python, except it's done in a slightly different way. It uses like a beginning and an end syntax, and everything's tagged. So that's why it's a markup language. You have text, but everything is tagged with these hypertext things. They're all marked up by it. And you'll see what I mean once we hop into HTML, and at least a simple HTML website. Okay, guys. So with that, we're not going to start with syntax yet. I'm going to show you how to look at HTML first, like go to a website and like play around with your browser a bit and use some tools that'll be useful for like scraping and for looking at websites in general. This will be useful information. And then we're going to move into the syntax of HTML once I show you where you can actually find the HTML in the first place. So in my example here, guys, I'm using this website. We're going to be using a package for HTML scraping called Beautiful Soup. So this is a test website for making sure that you can get your Beautiful Soup package working with this HTML website. Okay, so what this website is just a set of lyrics, I guess. It's either a poem or a song. It's kind of silly, but it allows you to learn how to access all of this information. So one thing we always do when we scrape information from a website is we go into developer tools. So I'm on Chrome right now, but other browsers have something very similar. If you go, basically what we're looking for is two things. We're going to go into our developer tools here, and you'll see that my whole browser just changed, and there's all this information on the right-hand side. I'm going to show you what all of this is and what's going on very, very high level because it'll be useful for you when you scrape later. And we'll probably spend a little bit more time going through this in later sections as well. So first thing I want to show you is this part here. This is the elements section. So if you highlight things, it kind of shows you where certain groups of text are. Each of these things are called objects here. So you see this thing called P class verse ID. This is a piece of text that's being stored in a P class object, and it's been labeled. The class is verse, which is like a higher level label, like a grouping label, and the ID, which is the specific ID for this blue highlighted paragraph object, is first. And you'll notice that you have another verse here, but it's third. So you can see how all of these are labeled in a way that it might be easy for us to extract if we had the right packages in Python. And why would we need packages in Python? Because like this is what's underneath. These have all tags and all a bunch of other information, and there might be things that we need to extract in more sophisticated ways as well. So this elements section is really trying to, it might be actually, when you're looking at more advanced websites, it might not show you as much as you think, so don't rely on this too much. But I wanted to show you this also as a matter of example, so you start to get familiar with HTML code. Next is this console thing. So this is basically like a Python console, but except it's a different language. We can't really use it for anything, but sometimes if you're building code or you're building a website, you'll want to log information because you're having a bug or something, so you'll want to print it so you can see where an object is in its delivery to another, algorithm or framework. So it's more used for development of websites, but that's what that is. This shows you all of the objects that are, in the system. We're not going to spend too much time on that. We don't need that. And this is also pretty interesting. So when I refresh this page, this is going to show the trajectory of what is loaded and when. So this is useful because sometimes some information gets passed through as kind of temporary files. So you can intercept certain packages of information when you scrape. So this is a very useful console. However, this is a simple website, so not much is being shown. Okay, so this is a really useful terminal for kind of like analyzing what's going on in a website when you decide whether or not you can or cannot scrape it. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to look at the HTML for this. And this is something I always do as well. I always view the source code, or like what is being rendered as well, to determine if I'm able to scrape something simply. Because if it's a lot of websites these days don't render HTML. It's kind of hidden in the background, so you have to use additional packages to almost like create an emulated browser and then extract that information. But rather, what we're learning is how to scrape from raw HTML. I mean, this is something that you would have to learn eventually if you were to do it with with more modern websites. But you have to learn how to do this before you can do that, because they stack on top of each other. So what we see here is our HTML. So now I'm going to go into our syntax section and write a little bit on this, okay, guys? Because this is where we'll spend our time on our syntax, and then we'll do a recap, okay? All right, everyone, here we are in our syntax section. So today, or at least in this one, we did it kind of backwards, but we're going to look at what a website syntax looks like. And I'm just going to try and describe what's going on here and how this is being rendered, so you can start to look at other websites maybe with the same mindset. This is not going to be a complete tutorial on this stuff. There is much more you would need to learn in HTML, but hopefully it'll give you a good starting off point so you can at least understand the basics of what is going on, okay? So the first thing you're seeing here is this commented out section. It's just a tag that is used to tell your browser kind of like some things about it, like what dependencies and a couple of other things, all right? So don't worry about this too much. It's not really used that often. It's not something that you need to know much about. The next set of code you see here, basically down to head here, is your header. And headers are basically just are almost like a bunch of summary parameters about the website or about what you're going to render in your HTML. It's saying that this is an US English website. It's saying content uses text HTML, character set ASCII. So it's just providing your browser some contextual information so it knows how to render things properly, okay? So when we're scraping, this stuff doesn't really matter to us. I mean, maybe it does for your specific task. I'm not sure. Maybe there's something out there. But to be frank, usually this is not information that we ever scrape. It's not what we're looking for. In this next part you see here, okay, this is probably where I want to start talking about HTML kind of syntax, because this isn't a piece of information that matters. So how HTML syntax works is HTML has like a bunch of commands, different tags that have different functions and features. So for instance, the line we're looking at right now just is the parameter for telling the website or telling your browser what the title of the website is, what will go up on your top bar of your browser, for instance. And how the nomenclature works is that you have the tag and you use the greater than and less than signs. You have the tag. There might be some parameters with the tag. I'm just going to put P here. And then it closes. And everything that now happens in between this and a closing tag, so we have the same tag name, but it's kind of started with a forward slash. That tells our HTML that everything in between this should be run on or operated on as the special tag type. So in our case, in this first thing, it's setting the title. So this would be, title here and title here. And now your browser knows, it can read this and say, okay, this is the information that I need to put into the title pane on my browser. Okay. So that piece of information is important. That is in the header, but the stuff above it isn't as important. So there might be a handful of things in your header that you want, but usually what you want is in the body of the page. So everything up until this point in the head hasn't been rendered on the web page. Like, it's all stuff that is not about showing the web page itself. It's stuff around it. It's like the meta information about it. All of the information that goes into the web page that you see is stored in the body tag. Okay, so you see the body tag there, the body tag here. It is all wrapped in an HTML tag. So everything is, the entire web page will have to both start with an HTML tag and end with it after the body. So that's an important detail to look at there. And then you start to see different tags here for the text that is in the body. Okay, so P means paragraph class. H means like the header, the title for the page itself. And the 1 tells you basically the size of the header. They have like 1, 2, and 3. You'll also see that P ends here. And then we gave it a class and an ID. We talked about that earlier. And that everything in between is the text that is going to be rendered onto the page from that paragraph class. One thing you'll notice here, though, is that there's a special tag called BR. That's a line break. So each of these times here is a line break here and a line break here. And that's what that's saying. And that basically describes the entire HTML page, guys. We have a header here. The song name is called Turtle Soup. And then we have 4 paragraphs. 2, 3, 4. Some of the paragraphs are verses, and some are choruses. So this is probably a song. So now let's just do a recap, because basically what I was hoping to show you was how to read a website like this and some of the elements that go into HTML, how we're then going to extract this stuff using a package called Beautiful Soup and get down to the, maybe a line in the verse that we want really easily, because this is not something that you could do in 20 lines of code with what you know in Python right now, but it would take you hundreds. So instead, we're going to download a package that does this for us already and get it down to like 3 lines, really. So that's the point of showing you how all this works, because without having this base knowledge, you won't be able to grab knowledge using, or grab information rather, using our packages. Okay, so guys, so with that, we learned the basics of HTML. We learned, how tags work in HTML and how websites are like very, very basically generated at a very high level. We looked at source code in browsers, so we pulled up those developer tools and tried to see like all the different ways that a website is operating that we can watch and maybe extract other information from later. So in our next section, we're going to actually go in and start learning how to extract information from these websites using a package called Requests and Beautiful Soup. So with that in mind, guys, see you next one.